Hello everyone tuning into this channel. Before we dive into this thrilling story, I'd like to invite those of you watching for the first time to subscribe. I promise that stories like this, about real people facing extraordinary challenges, will keep coming your way. Now, let's meet Natalie Cooper, a woman who discovered that setting boundaries isn't just necessary, but also liberating. The phone vibrated for the third time in less than 5 minutes. Natalie Cooper took a deep breath, trying to keep her composure as she scanned the spreadsheets scattered across her desk. The numbers danced before her tired eyes, not because of the complex calculations assessing millions in potential investments, but from the exhaustion that had accumulated in her body over the years. When the device buzzed again, she reluctantly turned it over. On the screen, the name Harper flashed insistently, like an alarm that could never be completely silenced. Natalie closed her eyes for a moment. Her younger sister calling in the middle of a hectic Wednesday could only mean trouble. Or money. Usually, both came hand in hand. "Natalie Cooper speaking," she answered, maintaining the professional tone she used for business calls, an unconscious habit she adopted whenever she spoke with Harper. "Nat, finally! I've been trying to reach you for hours!" Harper's voice sounded both excited and demanding, a combination Natalie knew all too well. "I'm in the middle of an important analysis, Harper. What's going on?" Natalie adjusted her thin-framed glasses as she spoke, glancing discreetly at the clock. There were only 2 hours left until she needed to pick up Noah and Grace from school. "I have amazing news. I'm organizing Thanksgiving dinner this year. I've already booked the Lakeside Terrace, that beautiful restaurant with a lake view. It's going to be absolutely perfect." Natalie felt a familiar pang of apprehension. Harper's grand plans always came with a price, literally. And for some reason, that price often ended up coming out of her bank account. "Harper, that sounds expensive. I thought we were keeping it simple this year. Maybe at our parents' house." A tinkling laugh rang out on the other end of the line. "Simple? Natalie, you know I have nearly 30,000 followers now. I can't just post about a mediocre dinner. Besides," Harper lowered her voice conspiratorially, "Aunt Martha's husband will be there, and you know how influential he is in real estate. Jason might finally get that business opportunity we've been waiting for." Natalie rubbed her temples. Jason, Harper's husband, was the son of a small business owner and was always searching for the big opportunity that never seemed to come, while Harper zealously maintained the image of a successful couple on social media. "And how much is all of this going to cost?" Natalie asked directly. A brief silence. "Well, the organic menu, Chef Laurent's desserts. You know how it is. I had to make some quality choices. And to be honest, I kind of went a little over our budget." "How much, Harper?" Natalie pressed, feeling her stomach sink. "Just $3,000. Give or take." Natalie nearly dropped her phone. $3,000? For a dinner? "Natalie." Harper's voice took on that syrupy quality she always used when she wanted something. "I know it's hard for you to understand, but maintaining certain appearances is important. Jason and I have a reputation to uphold. And frankly," she paused theatrically, "it would be sad if Noah and Grace couldn't have the same experiences as other kids just because you chose to be a single mother." The words hit Natalie like a slap. She felt the blood rush to her face, anger rising like a wave. But before she could respond, she heard the excited voices of her children in the background of the call. "Aunt Harper, are we really going to that nice restaurant with chocolate dessert?" Grace's voice, her 6-year-old daughter, overflowed with enthusiasm. "Of course, sweetie," Harper replied, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "If your mommy agrees to help." In that moment, Natalie felt cornered. Her gaze wandered to the small frame on her desk where Noah and Grace smiled, Noah's front teeth missing, Grace's wild curls framing her little face. They deserved nice things, special moments, a family united, even if imperfect. "Fine," she finally said, the words coming out like stones from her mouth. "I'll help with the dinner." Harper's joyful scream from the other end of the line seemed to echo in Natalie's ears long after she hung up. The following days passed in a blur of intense work and endless household tasks. Natalie balanced meetings with important clients, checking homework, preparing school lunches, and market analyses with the precision of an experienced acrobat. Every minute of her day was meticulously planned, a choreographed dance between her demanding career and single motherhood. On a chilly Tuesday, while helping Noah with a science project about the solar system, her email pinged. A message from Harper. The subject line simply read, "Thanksgiving dinner." Natalie opened it distractedly, expecting details about times or menus. However, the words that filled the screen made her hands tremble. "Dear Natalie, after much reflection and discussions with Mom, Dad, and some key family members who will be present, we think it's best if you don't attend Thanksgiving dinner. Your presence as a single mother could make some guests uncomfortable and, frankly, ruin the image we're trying to build for this celebration. Noah and Grace are more than welcome, of course. I can pick them up from school on Thursday and take them directly to the event. They can spend the night at our house afterward. I know you'll understand this difficult but necessary decision. After all, we always put family first. With love, Harper." Natalie read the message 3 times, unable to fully process what she was seeing. Her own sister was excluding her from a family celebration that she herself was funding. And worse, she wanted to take her children without her. "Mom, are you okay?" Noah's concerned voice brought her back to reality. Her son was watching her with attentive eyes, so perceptive for an 8-year-old. "Yeah, sweetheart. Just a work email." She forced a smile, closing the laptop more forcefully than intended. "Shall we finish up Jupiter?" Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Natalie sat on her small balcony, a cup of tea cooling between her hands. The initial pain had transformed into something deeper, sharper. It wasn't just the rejection that hurt. It was the blatant hypocrisy, the manipulation, the way Harper used her children as pawns in a cruel game. With trembling fingers, she dialed her parents' number. Surely they wouldn't agree to this. They would defend her, put Harper in her place. "Hello?" Her mother's voice sounded distant, almost cold. "Mom, I just got an email from Harper excluding me from the Thanksgiving dinner that I'm paying for." Natalie burst out, her voice choked. "This is absurd. How can you allow this?" A heavy sigh came from the other end of the line. "Natalie, dear, you need to learn to read the room. Harper is just trying to protect the family's reputation. Some of the guests are very important for Jason's future, and you know how people talk." The response hit Natalie like a physical blow. How do people talk about what exactly? About me raising my kids alone after Michael left us? About me working hard to support them? "Don't be dramatic, Natalie," her mother replied irritably. "No one is questioning your choices. We're just trying to keep up appearances. Harper has a reputation to uphold. A lifestyle. A false lifestyle that I'm funding." Natalie interrupted, her voice rising an octave. "Did you know I've been covering her car repairs since she crashed last month? Did you know this whole dinner is coming out of my pocket?" The silence that followed was revealing. Of course they knew. They'd always known. "Daughter, sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the family," her father finally spoke, his voice deep, trying to sound reasonable. "Harper has always been more sensitive to others' opinions. You've always been the strong one." In that moment, something inside Natalie broke, or perhaps finally strengthened. "Fine then," she said, her voice surprisingly calm. "If I'm not welcome, you won't be there either." Before her parents could respond, she hung up the phone. A strange serenity enveloped her as she grabbed her laptop. There were decisions to make, boundaries to establish, and for the first time in her adult life, Natalie was ready to draw them with absolute clarity. The next morning brought a determination Natalie hadn't felt in years. She woke up before the alarm, brewed strong coffee, and opened her laptop at the kitchen table as the first rays of sunlight illuminated the apartment. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she methodically executed each step of her plan. First, a call to the Lakeside Terrace restaurant. "Good morning. I'd like to discuss a reservation for Thanksgiving dinner under the name Harper Williams," she said in a calm, professional voice. "Of course, ma'am. We have a reservation for 20 people, premium menu, and private chef service. The deposit has already been made." "Exactly. I'm Natalie Cooper, the one responsible for the payment. I need to cancel the reservation, please." A brief pause. "Ma'am, canceling less than 2 weeks before the event incurs a fee of..." I'm aware of the policies. The card used for the deposit is in my name, and I authorize the refund after applicable fees are deducted. I can send a formal email confirming this request immediately." As she spoke, Natalie typed the email, attaching payment receipts and her identification. The cancellation was processed in 15 minutes. Next, she called Chef Laurent's catering service and went through the same process. Finally, she accessed her banking app and canceled the scheduled transfer for the repairs on Harper's car, an expense her sister had been carefully hiding from her husband after an accident caused by her recklessness. "Mom, are we late?" Grace's sleepy voice interrupted her. Her daughter stood at the kitchen door, still in pajamas, curls pointing in every direction. Natalie smiled, a genuine smile this time. "No, sweetheart. In fact, we're ahead of schedule. How about blueberry pancakes for breakfast?" Grace's face lit up instantly. "Really? On a weekday?" "Really. And I have a special idea. Instead of going to Aunt Harper's restaurant on Thanksgiving Day, how about we have our own celebration? Just the three of us?" Grace frowned, confused. "But Aunt Harper said there would be a giant chocolate dessert." Natalie knelt down to be at her daughter's level. "What if I promise that we'll have not just one but 2 chocolate desserts? And we can watch movies in our pajamas afterward?" Grace's eyes widened. 2 desserts? And Noah will like it? "I'm sure he will. And we can invite Aunt Martha, too. You like her, right?" Grace nodded vigorously. Aunt Martha, Natalie's mother's sister, was the only relative who consistently treated Natalie with genuine respect and affection. "Great. It'll be the best Thanksgiving ever," Natalie promised, kissing the top of her daughter's head. "Now let's wake up that lazy brother and make those pancakes." As Grace dashed off to wake Noah, Natalie felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The path she had chosen wouldn't be easy. There would be confrontations, accusations, perhaps even permanent rifts. But for the first time in years, she felt like she was regaining control of her own life, setting the boundaries she should have drawn long ago. The weeks that followed were surprisingly calm. Harper sent a few messages about dinner details, to which Natalie replied vaguely, "Everything is on track," or "Don't worry about that." Her sister, so used to Natalie taking on all the responsibilities, didn't question her evasive responses. At work, Natalie channeled her new energy into an ambitious project, an investment strategy in emerging markets that she had been developing for months but had never had the courage to present. Her boss, impressed with the detailed and innovative proposal, greenlit her to lead the initiative. "Cooper, if this works out as expected, we're talking about a significant promotion," he remarked, eyeing the meticulous graphs she had prepared. For the first time in years, Natalie allowed herself to dream of possibilities. A larger apartment for the kids, perhaps piano lessons for Grace, who always had a love for music, or the science camp Noah wanted to attend next summer. Not extravagant luxuries like those Harper flaunted on her social media, but meaningful experiences that would enrich her children's lives. On the eve of Thanksgiving, Natalie carefully prepared her home for the intimate celebration she had planned. Aunt Martha had readily accepted the invitation, promising to bring her famous pumpkin pie. The kids had helped decorate the table with autumn leaves collected from the park and scented candles. When Noah and Grace finally fell asleep, exhausted from the preparations, Natalie sat again on her small balcony. Her phone was silent, set to receive only emergency calls. Tomorrow would be the day of truth, the moment when years of manipulation and disrespect would meet their inevitable end. Surprisingly, she felt no anxiety or fear, just a quiet certainty that she was doing what was right, not just for herself, but for Noah and Grace, who deserved to grow up seeing their mother treated with dignity. Thanksgiving Day dawned with a strange sense of lightness. The storm was coming, but Natalie was ready to face it. The aroma of roasted turkey and cinnamon filled the small apartment as Natalie moved gracefully through the kitchen. There was something liberating about preparing a simple meal, made with love, without worrying about appearances or external expectations. Noah helped make the mashed potatoes, his tongue peeking out in complete concentration as he mashed the cooked tubers. Grace meticulously arranged the utensils on the table, counting aloud to ensure each place was perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4 places, she announced proudly. One for Mommy, one for Noah, one for me, and one for Aunt Martha. Perfect, sweetheart, Natalie smiled, adjusting the seasoning of the cranberry sauce. The clock on the wall struck noon when the first message came in. It was from Harper, of course. We're leaving for the restaurant now. What time will you take the kids? Natalie stared at the message but didn't reply. At 12:15, her phone rang again. Harper again. She silenced the call. At 12:40, as Aunt Martha arrived carrying her pumpkin pie with a conspiratorial glint in her eye, Natalie's phone started ringing incessantly. Looks like the storm has arrived, Martha commented with an understanding smile, hugging her niece tightly. You okay? Natalie nodded. Better than I've been in years, actually. The phone rang again. This time, it was her mother. Natalie answered, putting it on speakerphone while she continued preparing the salad. Natalie Elizabeth Cooper! Her mother's voice was shrill with panic. What madness is this? We're all here at the Lakeside Terrace, and the manager says our reservation was canceled weeks ago. Harper is having a meltdown, and the manager insists it was you who canceled everything. That's right, Mom, Natalie replied calmly. I canceled. A stunned silence followed on the other end of the line. You... what? How could you do this? Everyone is here. Jason's family, his colleagues, Uncle Robert and Aunt Cynthia came all the way from Chicago just for... I wasn't welcome, remember? Natalie interrupted, her voice firm but not hostile. Harper made it clear that my presence would ruin the party. You all agreed. So naturally, I assumed you wouldn't want to use my money for a celebration from which I was excluded. But the kids! Harper promised them. My children are here with me, where they belong. We're having our own Thanksgiving dinner with people who respect and value us. A distant scream could be heard in the background. Harper, no doubt realizing the full implications of what had just happened. This is unforgivable, Natalie, her mother stammered, her voice trembling with rage. Harper is going to get here in 20 minutes and you better... Mom, Natalie interrupted her again, this time gently. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. She hung up and turned her attention back to the table, where Noah was looking at her with a worried expression. Is Grandma mad? He asked quietly. Natalie knelt beside him. Yes, honey. Sometimes even adults make mistakes and get upset when they have to face the consequences. But don't worry. Today is about giving thanks for the good things in our lives, and I'm very, very grateful for you and your sister. Noah smiled shyly, his eyes, so much like hers, shining with relief. I'm thankful for you too, Mommy. 40 minutes later, as they enjoyed the delicious meal prepared together, the doorbell rang insistently. Aunt Martha raised an eyebrow. Do you want me to get it? She offered. Natalie shook her head, placing her napkin down on the table. No, that's okay. Kids, keep eating with Aunt Martha. Mommy will be right back. When she opened the door, she found exactly what she expected. Harper, her face twisted in fury, makeup flawless, now smeared by tears of rage. Behind her, her parents stood, expressions divided between shock and indignation. How could you? Harper hissed, trying to enter the apartment. Natalie calmly blocked her way. Isn't this what you wanted? A dinner without the embarrassing presence of the single mother? Natalie asked, her voice controlled. I'm just respecting your wishes, Harper. You know very well it wasn't like that, Harper shouted, drawing curious glances from neighbors. You ruined everything. Jason is furious. The guests are humiliated, and it's all your fault. Natalie crossed her arms. No, Harper. The blame lies entirely with you. You wanted an extravagant dinner you couldn't afford. You excluded me from the celebration while expecting me to fund your show of appearances. You tried to manipulate my children and use my family situation as a weapon against me. Natalie, enough with this childish behavior, her father intervened, his deep voice trying to impose authority. You need to fix this right now. I already fixed it, Natalie replied simply. I reclaimed my money, my dignity, and taught my children a valuable lesson about respect and boundaries. As for the rest, she shrugged, it's no longer my problem. You'll regret this, Harper threatened, her face a mask of hatred. Jason will what? A new voice interrupted. Harper's husband had just climbed the stairs, his usually composed face now rigid with contained fury. He's going to find out my wife has been lying about our finances, that she's been extorting money from her own sister while treating her with contempt. Too late, Harper. I just received some very interesting emails. Harper paled, turning to her husband. Jason, I can explain. But Jason just shook his head, an expression of disgust evident. Save it. We'll talk at home. Or better yet, at my lawyer's office. He turned to Natalie. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't know. Natalie nodded silently, watching as he walked away. Harper seemed to shrink several inches, all her bravado disappearing in an instant. What have you done? She whispered, horrified. I just sent the truth to those who needed to know, Natalie replied. Copies of the emails exchanged between us, payment receipts, including the one for the car repairs you hid from him. Nothing but the truth, Harper. Her mother stepped forward, her face twisted in a mixture of anger and incredulity. You destroyed your sister's life out of pure resentment. No, Mom. Harper destroyed her own marriage with lies and manipulation. I just stopped being her accomplice and victim. Natalie took a deep breath, feeling a surprising calm wash over her. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a family dinner waiting for me. A small, imperfect, but honest and loving family. Happy Thanksgiving. And with that, she gently closed the door, returning to the table where Noah, Grace, and Aunt Martha were waiting. The raised voices from the other side of the door soon faded, and silence reigned once more. Is everything okay, Mommy? Grace asked, her big eyes worried. Natalie smiled, genuinely. Yes, sweetheart. In fact, everything is better than ever. Winter arrived with an unexpected intensity that year, covering the city with a blanket of snow that seemed to reflect the drastic changes in Natalie's life. In the weeks following Thanksgiving, the world she knew transformed completely, as if that invisible line she had finally drawn had altered not only her relationships, but the entire universe around her. The first major change came in the form of a corporate email, just 3 days after the incident. Her boss, Marcus Sinclair, called her in for an urgent meeting. Cooper, your project for emerging markets in Asia has been approved by the board, he announced without preamble as she entered his office. We're talking about a 20% increase and a promotion to associate director, effective January. Natalie almost dropped the folder she was carrying. Really? So soon? Marcus smiled, a rare sight for the normally austere executive. The numbers speak for themselves. Plus, he hesitated, adjusting his glasses, I've noticed you seem different in the past few weeks. More focused, more confident. Whatever you're doing in your personal life, it's working professionally. She smiled, thinking about how a simple decision for self-preservation had rippled into all areas of her life. Let's just say I've learned to set healthy boundaries. The second transformation was more painful, though expected. News of Harper and Jason's impending divorce spread quickly through the family and social circles. As Natalie learned through Aunt Martha, Jason had filed for divorce immediately after discovering Harper's financial lies. With a strict prenuptial agreement penalizing infidelity or fraud, Harper would receive virtually nothing in the settlement. She's devastated, Martha commented during one of their frequent dinners at Natalie's apartment. She had to sell her car to pay off the debts Jason discovered, and she's temporarily living with your parents. Natalie stirred her tea thoughtfully. And how are Mom and Dad handling it? Martha let out a dry laugh. Not very well. Particularly after your dad was removed from the church committee when the story broke. Apparently, excluding his own daughter, a hard-working single mother, from a family celebration while she funded it, doesn't align with the Christian values he preaches so much. Part of Natalie felt a pang of guilt over the extent of the consequences. Another part, however, recognized that she had merely exposed truths that should have come to light long before. The third change was the most unexpected, and perhaps the most significant. One Saturday morning, while helping Noah with his new telescope, an early Christmas gift she could now afford thanks to the promotion, Natalie received a notification on her phone. It was a message from one of her co-workers. Natalie, you need to see this. Harper is having a public breakdown on social media. Attached was a link to Harper's Instagram profile, where her sister had posted a 15-minute video. Swollen eyes, disheveled hair, sitting in what looked like her childhood bedroom at their parents' house. In the video, Harper oscillated between tears and accusations, revealing every sordid detail of her schemes to extract money from Natalie over the years, while simultaneously belittling her behind the scenes. "And now she's ruined my life," Harper sobbed to the camera. "My marriage, my reputation, it's all over because of her." The comments under the video were devastating. Horrified followers expressed their disdain for Harper, many tagging brands and sponsors she had collaborated with. Within hours, her carefully built empire of digital influence lay in ruins. Sponsors publicly severed partnerships, followers abandoned her by the thousands, and the video, which Harper had likely filmed in a moment of emotional desperation, went viral for all the wrong reasons. Natalie closed the app, feeling a strange mix of emotions. She hadn't planned this part. She didn't wish for Harper's public humiliation. But she also recognized that her sister was finally facing the natural consequences of years of manipulation and deceit. "Mommy, look! I can see Jupiter!" Noah exclaimed excitedly, drawing her attention back to the telescope. Natalie smiled, pushing her phone aside. The past could crumble around her, but the future, bright as the planet in the night sky, was there, waiting to be explored with her children. In the months that followed, Natalie discovered a new routine, a new balance. With her raise, she moved to a more spacious apartment, still modest but with a bedroom for each child and a small study area for her projects. Grace began piano lessons, her little fingers dancing across the keys with growing confidence. Noah joined a local astronomy club, thriving among other kids who shared his passion for the cosmos. Aunt Martha became a constant presence in their lives, bringing not only her sharp humor and practical wisdom, but also a sense of familial continuity that the children needed. On Sundays, they often cooked together, Martha teaching Natalie family recipes that her own mother had never bothered to share. "You know," Martha commented one of those afternoons while teaching Grace how to make cinnamon cookies, "I always knew you would be the strong one. Since you were little, you had this inner light, this determination that Harper never possessed." Natalie smiled, watching her daughter cover her hands in flour with joy. "I haven't felt strong for a long time. In fact, I thought I was doing the right thing by supporting everyone, sacrificing my needs." Martha wiped her hands on her apron, her expression serious. "That's not strength, dear. It's martyrdom. True strength lies in knowing when to say no, when to draw that line that others can't cross." The week before Christmas, while walking through the mall with the kids for last-minute shopping, Natalie spotted a familiar figure. Harper was working as a sales associate in a department store, her bare face almost unrecognizable compared to the polished persona she had maintained for years on social media. For a brief moment, their eyes met across the festive crowd. There was no wave, no forced smile, just a silent acknowledgement between sisters who now inhabited completely different worlds. Harper looked away first, turning her attention back to a customer. Natalie continued on her way, holding Noah and Grace's hands. That night, as she placed the presents under the small Christmas tree they had decorated together, Natalie found an envelope that had arrived in the mail earlier. It was a card from her parents, the first contact since the Thanksgiving incident. The message was brief, formal, clearly written by her mother's hand. "We hope you and the children have a Merry Christmas. Things are tough here, but we're adapting. Harper has found a job and is living in a small apartment now. Perhaps with time we can all move forward. With love, Mom and Dad." There was no apology, no real acknowledgement of the role they played in the conflict. Typical, Natalie thought. But there were also no accusations or demands. A small step forward, perhaps. She tucked the card away in a drawer. Maybe one day, when the wounds weren't so fresh, she could consider reconciliation on new terms. For now, she was focused on building something far more precious. An environment where her children could grow up seeing mutual respect modeled daily, where they understood that true love never comes with emotional blackmail or manipulation. Spring brought not just flowers and longer days, but a renewed sense of possibilities for Natalie. 5 months had passed since the Thanksgiving that changed everything, and life had found a new rhythm, calmer, more authentic. On a sunny April afternoon, sitting on a bench in the park while watching Noah and Grace play in the sandbox, Natalie reflected on the transformations that had occurred since she decided to draw that invisible yet powerful line. Professionally, her project in emerging markets was exceeding all expectations. Her meticulous analyses had correctly predicted trends that others had overlooked, resulting in significant gains for the company and solidifying her reputation as a brilliant strategist. Her colleagues, who had once seen her as competent but quiet, now actively sought her guidance and opinion. "You seem different," her assistant commented recently. "More present." Natalie understood exactly what she meant. For years, part of her had always been elsewhere, worried about Harper's demands, anxious about her parents' expectations, constantly calculating how she could balance everyone's needs without completely falling apart. Now, free of that emotional burden, she could dedicate her energy to what truly mattered. On a personal level, the changes were even deeper. Noah, always a sensitive and observant boy, seemed more confident, less worried about constantly pleasing others. Grace, naturally exuberant, blossomed with a joy that seemed to light up every room she entered. Their evenings were filled with shared readings, board games, and genuine conversations, not with the constant sound of demanding message notifications or tense phone calls. As for her extended family, things remained complicated. Harper had secured a stable job as an administrative assistant at a small real estate company. Ironically, the same sector Jason operated in, albeit on a much smaller scale. According to Aunt Martha, she was slowly rebuilding her life, learning to live within her real financial means for the first time. Her parents maintained a polite distance, occasionally sending cards for the kids on special occasions or making brief calls on birthdays. There were no more invitations for tense Sunday lunches or veiled comments about her life choices. It was a silent truce, not exactly reconciliation, but a space for new dynamics to perhaps eventually emerge. "Mom, look what I made!" Grace shouted, running towards her with hands full of wet sand, creating something that vaguely resembled a castle. "It's wonderful, sweetheart," Natalie smiled, genuinely admiring her daughter's clumsy creation. "A castle for brave princesses?" Grace shook her head vigorously. No, it's our home. Look, here's my room, here's Noah's, and here's yours. And here," she pointed to a small mound of sand, "is where Aunt Martha sits to tell stories." Natalie felt her heart swell with a wave of gratitude. Her 6-year-old daughter had perfectly captured what mattered, not grandeur or appearances, but the home they had built together, the moments shared, the authentic love that permeated their little world. Noah joined them, his glasses slightly askew and an astronomy book under his arm. "Mom, can I read to you about the spring constellations? Aunt Martha said we'll be able to see them clearly tonight at the backyard campout." "Of course you can, scientist," Natalie replied, making space on the bench for him. As Noah began to read, his young voice filled with excitement about the wonders of the universe, Natalie looked up at the blue sky above them. The same sense of serenity she had felt that November night, when she had finally decided to set her boundaries, returned with renewed strength. Drawing boundaries didn't mean building walls, she understood now. It meant clearly defining where others' territory ended and where hers began. It meant respecting herself enough to say no when necessary, to protect not just herself, but the sacred space where her children were growing. A few weeks later, on a quiet late afternoon, the doorbell of her apartment rang unexpectedly. When she opened the door, Natalie found Harper standing there, holding a small pot of violets. Her sister looked different, not just for the absence of perfect makeup and designer clothes that had once been her trademark. There was something in her eyes, a certain humility that Natalie had never seen before. "Can I come in?" Harper asked, her voice low, almost hesitant. Natalie hesitated for just a moment before opening the door wider, allowing her sister to enter. The kids were with Aunt Martha in a cooking class, giving them privacy for this long-overdue conversation. Harper sat stiffly on the edge of the sofa, placing the violets on the coffee table. "These were your favorites when we were little," she explained, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. "You always said they were strong, despite looking fragile." Natalie nodded, sitting in the opposite armchair. "What brings you here, Harper?" Her sister took a deep breath, her hands fidgeting in her lap. I'm doing therapy. Part of the process is recognizing the harm I've caused and trying to make amends when possible." "I understand," Natalie replied, keeping her tone neutral. Harper began, her voice faltering momentarily. "I don't expect your forgiveness, Natalie. What I did for years, the manipulation, the lies, the way I treated you when you were already carrying so much weight." She shook her head. "It was unforgivable, but I want you to know that I'm genuinely sorry." Natalie watched her sister closely, searching for signs of the old manipulative pattern, the falseness that had characterized their relationships for so long. Instead, she saw only a broken woman trying to rebuild herself on more honest foundations. "Thank you for saying that," she finally replied. "It means a lot." Harper nodded, unshed tears glistening in her eyes. "My therapist says I grew up believing my worth was only in my appearance, in how others saw me, that I needed others' approval to exist. It's not an excuse, but," she shrugged, "I'm trying to understand how I became so empty." A contemplative silence fell between them, not entirely comfortable, but no longer laden with the toxic tension of before. "How are Noah and Grace?" Harper finally asked. A genuine smile lit up Natalie's face. "They're great. Noah is obsessed with astronomy. I think we have a scientist in the family. And Grace started piano lessons. You should hear how she plays Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star with such focus." Harper smiled shyly. "I'd like that. Someday, maybe. If you think it's okay." Natalie nodded. "Someday. We're not in that terrible place anymore, Harper. But we need to build something new slowly. With honesty this time." "That's fair," Harper agreed, standing to leave. At the door, she turned back one last time. "You know what else my therapist said? That you were brave that Thanksgiving Day. That while we were all caught up in toxic patterns, you found the strength to draw a line and say, 'Enough.' She's right. You've always been the strong one, Natalie. I was just too caught up in my own insecurities to see it." After Harper left, Natalie stood watching the violets on the coffee table. Strong, despite looking fragile. Just like her. Just like the invisible but powerful boundaries she had learned to draw. That night, when Noah and Grace returned with Aunt Martha, full of stories about the cookies they had learned to make, Natalie hugged them tightly with a special intensity. This was her true wealth. Not appearances, not external approval, but authentic love and relationships based on mutual respect. Later, after the kids had fallen asleep, she sat again on her small balcony, gazing at the stars Noah loved so much. The spring sky was clear, the constellations shining in eternal patterns. Drawing boundaries, she had learned, wasn't a cold or selfish act as she had always feared. It was, in fact, the most honest way to love herself, her children, and paradoxically, even those she needed to distance herself from. The invisible line she had drawn that Thanksgiving Day hadn't just protected her financial and emotional well-being. It had freed everyone from a destructive cycle of unrealistic expectations and subtle manipulations. It had created space for healing and, perhaps eventually, for more authentic relationships. As the gentle spring wind brushed her face, Natalie felt a profound sense of peace. Her life, though materially similar to before, had become spiritually richer. And that, more than any external appearance of success, was the true meaning of prosperity. And so we conclude this story, reminding us that establishing healthy boundaries is not just necessary. It's an act of courage and self-love. If you enjoyed this narrative about self-discovery and personal growth, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement inspires us to keep bringing stories that touch the heart and nourish the soul. Until next time.